everyone, and welcome to another amazing interview on Your Best Self Now Summit. Now, when me and our next guest discussed what we should talk about, her suggestion was absolutely amazing because it's something that we've never talked about on this summit, and I think it's going to help you tremendously when it comes to, what food actually does to your body and how your mind reacts to it. So, welcome, Viki Tondley.
Very happy to be here, Elena.
It's such a pleasure to have you with us. Can you please share with everyone what you do and how you end up doing what you're doing?
Okay, all right. Well, I'm a mind body wellness therapist, I'm a meditation teacher and an eating disorder specialist. And the long story short, I had an eating disorder, bulimia nervosa, for 18 years, from about my mid-teens to my very early 30s. I'm in my early 40s now, and it completely took over my life. I didn't know myself, I didn't know what I was hungry for, I had cravings all over the place, I had needs unfulfilled, and throughout that journey of being completely dysfunctional with food, completely disordered with my eating, and extremely out of touch with who I was, what I wanted, and what I really needed to feel happy and healthy and whole in my mind and body, I started learning more about holistic approaches to mind-body medicine, to meditation as therapy. And I started learning more about the mind-body-food connection and how food and stress impact our mind and body from operating at their optimal health. So it was through all of that that I started learning more about holistic counseling and neuroscience and positive psychology and meditation, and blending them all together with a holistic approach using somatic therapy and energy work as well, to blend them all together to work with people now from anything from low self-esteem, body shame, guilt around eating, all the way to middle-aged, sort of losing touch with themselves and their role in their life and their meaning, and not knowing who they are, what they want, or what their life's about. Particularly I work with people who struggle with disordered eating. I think that a lot of people, probably everybody, has some sort of disordered eating of some kind because of the fast, stressful daily lives that we lead. So that's in a nutshell what I do and why I do it, because I've been there and I've gone through the depression and the hormonal swings and the anxiety around food, and really not feeling comfortable in my own mind and body to feel vibrant and happy and positive and confident, which is a much better feeling than what it used to be for many years.
That's it's such an amazing way to actually put the difference between the two of how you feel when you were back then and how you feel now. For anyone who still feels that on some deep level that there isn't a way out for them and they can't escape that and they can never see themselves living a happy, healthy life, what would you say?
I would say yes, you can. You can if you believe you can, because where we direct our attention is where our energy flows. And from personal experience, when I could not possibly fathom that anybody else could love me because I didn't love me, when I worried about what I looked like in clothes when I walked into a room because I thought I looked terrible, I thought everybody else thought I looked terrible. And it was until I realized that my thinking and my opinion of myself mattered more than anybody else. It was until that point that I kept relying on external validation for who I was. And of course, that's like happiness, like relying on external sources to complete you or to make you happy. It really is dependent on you and the thoughts and environment that you're creating in your own mind. So I would say, yes, you can, but you've got to start with up here. That's the key.
Awesome. Something that me and you discussed before the interview. To what extent do you think that the food that we eat help us with creating those kind of thoughts in our head? In terms of are there any certain foods that will make our mind and body react in a different way, create different kinds of feelings? Whether there will be something that might lead to depression or to an anxiety.
Well, I always advocate eating a real food diet. But as far as particular foods to evoke particular feelings, yes, there are certain foods that are known to have certain properties and effects on our feelings, but that really does start in the mind, because it's what you believe about the food that you're eating. It's your perspective of, am I eating a good food or am I eating a bad food or not? So sometimes you could be eating the most, natural, whole, organic, beautiful variety seasonal foods, but if you're not attentive to your meal, if you're worrying that you're eating too much, if you're eating on the go, if you are skipping meals, then no amount of good nutrition is really going to have a profound impact on you if you are not even mindfully aware that you're eating. It will have minimal, yes, but there is such a thing as the cephalic phase digestive response. And a lot of people think that digestion starts in the mouth. It doesn't. It actually starts in the head. Cephalic of the head, it's a phase of digestion, cephalic phase digestive response, which means that when you appreciate the visual stimulation of a meal, the aroma, the textures of it, you are stimulating the enzymes and digestive juices of your stomach, preparing your body to receive that nutrition. And a lot of people are very fast eaters. A lot of people are eating on the run. They're too busy to sit down and actually mindfully, attentively eat and pay attention to what they're doing. So unfortunately, 30 to 40% of our digestive ability to break down and assimilate nutrients in our food into our cells to feed our fuel and information for the brain and the body is dependent on the cephalic phase digestive response. And that's a lot of nutrients, percentage of nutrients, 30 to 40% that we would be missing out on just by not being aware that we've actually eaten, not being aware of what we have eaten, and most importantly, if we actually enjoyed it. Because we can eat that food very quickly thinking we're eating very good food or we're eating well, but if we weren't actually attentive to it, if we weren't getting the maximum possible out of that meal in our digestive ability, then the body and the brain are going to be lacking, and the brain might think, I don't remember eating. I didn't get any satisfaction from that meal. I think I'm still hungry. So we have to remember that the mind and the thinking and our approach to eating really does play a large role in how much nutrients we're actually receiving, and then if we're going to be maximizing the benefit of those nutrients as best as possible.
So if someone, say for example, is eating a very healthy, in their own terms in mind, meal or food, but is always rushing to eat on the go, as you mentioned, or and don't even look at what they're eating, would it be an often occurrence where maybe an hour later they might feel hungry again?
Yeah, probably. And the other thing is that you've got to consider stress, because stress is stress isn't bad. It depends. Your attitude to stress can determine how much of the bad kind of stress or the chronic stress that you're under. But stress in itself is a necessary inbuilt survival mechanism to protect us. And unfortunately, stress can be activated by a thought alone. So again, we come back to the thoughts and the thinking, the perspective about what we're doing, what we're eating, and how it's affecting us. But stress can really play a major role in minimizing the body's ability to receive nutrients from food as well, because under a chronic low-grade persistent stress response, which a lot of people unfortunately are under day in, day out, that also impairs digestive capabilities. And in a full-blown stress response, digestion will shut down. So it's not just digestion, we've got reproductive organs as well. The endocrine system doesn't work as efficiently when you're under stress as well. So the stress plays a major role in different aspects of the body being able to break down and assimilate nutrients as well. So it all sort of feeds in together on your stress, your lifestyle, how much sugar you're having, and if you're getting enough sleep. So it all plays a role. There's lots of things that can impact and affect you and your mood and how well you feel in your mind and body, not just the food that you're eating or how you're eating it, but all these other factors that come into play.
So what would you recommend for someone who's leading a very stressful life and is always doesn't pay too much attention how they're getting their food, don't pay that much attention, how how many hours sleep they get, or what time they go to bed. And sometimes, we don't take those things into an account. What we think of that, okay, I've got this healthy meal, I think it's healthy, and this is, it's going to do its job, and it's supposed to. What would you recommend in that situation?
I would say start small. It might be helpful to actually write down all of the things that you are currently doing that aren't in your best interest. And once you've actually got a very clear picture of what those things are, and most people know what would be a better option or a healthier option to choose, but because of conditioned thinking and patterns of behavior and emotional responses that lead down the same pathways of choice and habit behavior, those things can take over. And even though they know what to do, or they might consciously, intellectually understand it, there's deeper levels of the brain and the mind that's conditioned within the body to go on its merry way and continue to take someone down that path when they might actually know that path or choice is much better for them. So starting slow by writing down and being very clear on the things, the habits, the choices, the food eating, the sleep routine, all of those aspects that you could improve upon and that you could make better choices for. Once you've got a clearer picture of what's not working and what you like to change, then you can start by just choosing one and choosing something to do instead. So not just removing it and having this sort of empty void, but replacing it, because you have to replace the pattern in the brain. You want to unwire this neural pathway from firing and taking you down that choice so that you can create a new pattern and a new habit and wire your neurons to fire down this way. So you've got to choose one thing at a time and give a new substitute for it. Choose something else that you'd like to bring in or substitute for something that you're taking out, and just focus on one thing at a time. And just to give you a little bit of an example, everyone is generally sleep deprived in modern day life. We work so hard, we try so hard to do more, to be more, to have more. So if you start with sleep and allowing your body to really move into a relaxed state at the end of the day and get into a nice little routine of preparing the body and the mind to relax and prepare for sleep is a great way to start. Because if you think about it, if you prepare yourself for sleep an hour before you would normally go to bed, and you do something very relaxing, you might try progressive muscle relaxation exercise. You might try just breathing or laying back and just listening to some relaxing music, having a bath with some candles, any of those things that you find relaxing. And that's actually great because it's asking you to get back in touch with things that make you feel good, that you may think you don't have time to do, or you've just sort of let fall by the wayside and forgotten to do them and forgotten how good you can feel because of it. Now, if you start with your sleep and you prepare to go to bed an hour earlier each night with this lovely wind down routine, you're enabling a few things. One, you are lowering, hopefully, cortisol, which is your main stress hormone. And when you lower cortisol, you actually increase melatonin. Melatonin comes in at nighttime when cortisol is low. The two sort of do this little dance. So if your cortisol remains high at nighttime and you're still wired or anxious or your mind's buzzing, melatonin doesn't get that opportunity to start to rise and to help give us that rest, digest, repair, quality sleep that a lot of us are missing out on. So you're balancing your hormones a little better in the evening by doing that. But you also, you're putting your body and mind into the best state to be able to really enjoy a quality night's sleep. The next day when you wake up, you will be feeling a little bit more refreshed, a little bit clearer, a little bit more energized. You'll just feel a little bit more calmer. And when you look at that over the course of a week, then potentially you could have 7 hours sleep extra over the course of a week. So you start to realize, well, I'm only doing one thing. I'm just going to bed an hour earlier with this beautiful new routine that really helps me feel relaxed. Then you do that every night over a course of a week. That's an additional 7 hours of sleep that has you at the end of the week waking up feeling so much more refreshed, feeling calmer and more focused to start your day. Now that for a lot of people will be a massive change and shift in their lives, and it's only one small change. So start small, pick one thing and then build upon it over time.
That's a really amazing example because I think that you're absolutely right. I think sometimes what we try to do is try to throw everything at once, try to make so many changes that our mind just can't cope with all those sudden, changes to our routine. And we tend to give up easily, and we are creatures of habit. And you're absolutely spot on when you said that when you take something away, you have to actually replace it with something. And that's such an amazing example.
I think it's a relatable example, because a lot of people struggle with getting to sleep and having enough of it. So, the brain likes familiarity, it likes patterns. So if you disrupt that pattern by removing a habit, you can't just not do anything. You can't just not do that. You have to give your brain an alternative, because that way you become adept at making the unfamiliar familiar. So what I mean by that is that you're making the new pattern more comfortable for your brain to accept as, this is my new reality, this is my new pattern, this is comfortable, it's becoming comfortable for me that I want to do this. And then the old behavior or habit becomes obsolete over time. So that takes a process to do that. That's why if you try and change everything at once, the brain is just overloaded and it can't cope with trying to remember all of these changes that you want to make at once. So a lot of people feel like they lack the willpower, or it's just too much, it's too hard to change, and that's usually because they have tried to change everything at once, and that's not the way to go. Be kind to your brain, just focus on one thing at a time.
Now, when you mentioned willpower, I think that so many people, find it really hard to stick to an eating regime. I don't want to refer to the word diet or, healthy or whatever it is, because that has a different meaning to everyone. And a lot of the time people think that the one thing they're lacking is willpower to stick to something that they think that it works for them. What is your opinion on that?
Well, I think that when a lot of people try to create change, they often do it from their highest brain, their conscious brain. They don't actually consult their subconscious mind. And when you consider that we approximately have anywhere between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day, and that about 80 to 90% of those thoughts are generally negative, because that's the way our brain is wired, to have a negative bias, and that's how we learn that this stove is hot, don't touch it, kind of thing. We need to remember the problem before we can then shift the focus onto a solution. So that is something that we need to respect as well when we're making change. So in regards to willpower, a lot of people try and make that change from the conscious mind, but they don't actually consult their subconscious mind. They don't actually consult the larger processing power of the subconscious mind. And when I say processing power, I'm talking about the brain's firing and wiring, but also neurons firing per second. So what neuroscientists have sort of come up with in a ratio to help you understand is that the conscious mind has only about 5% processing power based on neurons firing per second. The subconscious mind, where we have all of our past conditioned beliefs and thinking, all of the processing of every single day, short-term memory, long-term memory, it's all up there. And it's just constantly waiting to come in and have its day in the conscious mind. The subconscious mind has 95% processing power. So really what that's suggesting is we have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, most of them negative, and we're operating with a very minimal amount of conscious control or conscious ability to create change. So a lot of the things that we are wanting to change actually come from the subconscious mind, from our core beliefs, from our conditioned responses and thinking patterns. So when people try to make change and think that they don't have any willpower and they can't get past a certain point, generally that's when the subconscious mind is noticing the change, when the brain is actually noticing we are deviating from something that is comfortable and patterned and we know what to expect, to something that we're not sure of, that does not feel familiar and that we have no pattern for yet because you're trying to create it. But because you're creating it with a small percent of, or the smallest percent of the brain's processing ability, and you're not consulting your subconscious mind, the subconscious mind doesn't understand that as your new reality. So when people try to make change, what they really need to do is actually ask themselves and really dig deep for the answer, sometimes in meditation, sometimes in just really sitting there and asking yourself the question, what do I believe about what I say I want? Because if your subconscious mind is not on board with this new reality, this new habit, this new way of doing things that you're trying to create, your subconscious mind is the one holding all the power. And at any moment when things get too hard and really feel uncomfortable, the subconscious mind is going to throw you a few curveballs with some negative self-talk, or some I don't know if you're smart enough to do this, or I don't know if you're good enough to do this, or bringing out past experiences that sort of prove to you that no, you shouldn't be doing this. You should be, just coming back into what we see as normal, what we see as comfortable, the pattern that we're used to. So I think with willpower, willpower wouldn't really need to be a part of the equation if we actually worked with our subconscious mind just that little bit more, instead of thinking that, we can do it all out of logic or this conscious awareness, which is so minimal in the grand scheme of things. So I think getting your whole mind on board and trying to work with the underlying core beliefs that are really dictating your thoughts and your quality of thoughts and thinking, which then are creating your feelings, which are then influencing your behaviors. If you get that on board, then it won't be so much about willpower. It'll be just taking those steps necessary to really create true lasting change from the inside out.
Wow. So what would you say to someone who is constantly trapped in the negative self-talk kind of state?
In the negative self-talk kind of state?
Yeah.
Well, again, you can't change a problem if you're not aware of it. So awareness really is the first step to creating any kind of change. So if someone's aware that there's stuff there, there's negative self-talk there, then bringing it out and writing down all of this negative self-talk that you say to yourself gives you a really good indication of what might be the core underlying belief that are creating a lot of these negative self-talk pieces that I'm constantly hearing in my mind. So the other thing is that when you bring awareness to the negativity in your mind, you gain insight into what you're really thinking and saying to yourself constantly. Are you being your own best friend? Chances are you're probably not. So learning to talk to yourself in a loving and kind and encouraging way like you would your best friend, that, by bringing awareness to it, will really start to bring into your conscious awareness when you are speaking negatively to yourself, so that you can then catch that negative thought, challenge it. Is it true for you? Is it real and appropriate to who you are now? Maybe it was back then when you first came up with that idea or logic around how you were feeling as a child or a teenager, that was true for you. Whether it was true or not, it doesn't matter. Is it true for you now? Challenge it, challenge its validity. In what capacity have you been able to prove that wrong in your past? So it's asking you to actually think about, well, what did I do that was really hard, that I struggled with, but I overcame anyway, so that you can challenge the belief that maybe I can't do this, and prove to yourself or remind yourself, actually, I've been through really hard, tough times before, and I have risen to meet those challenges. I have discovered strength and tenacity and resilience that I didn't know I had, and I got through that problem. So in actuality, what you're saying to your negative self-talk is that it's not true. It's not true, because you've just been able to provide an example for yourself of why it's not true. So the more examples that you can use to challenge that self-talk, that negativity in your mind, the more then you can actually, after you catch it, challenge it, you can then change it. So what would you like to say to yourself? How would you like to show up and encourage yourself to do the best you can, to try and get through this situation as best you can with the knowledge you have in this moment? So again, it's kind of asking you to think about, well, what would I say to my best friend? What would I say to someone that I love going through a really tough time, telling themselves they can't do it? How would I approach that? What would I try and encourage them and remind them of? So it's really just asking you to be that kind of a friend to yourself. Catch it, challenge it, change it.
Awesome piece of advice. What are your thoughts on comfort eating in terms of there's been a lot, spoken about how we seek comfort in the food that we eat, because very often what we might use it as would be to numb something else that we are feeling at the moment. Yet we know that actually when we have that kind of food, it won't necessarily bring comfort. It might actually do exactly the opposite thing in the long run.
Yeah. Well, I think notoriously people don't like feeling their feelings, and that's because they're uncomfortable.
Awesome.
They're uncomfortable. Feelings are uncomfortable. But here's the thing. Feelings are uncomfortable for a reason, because it's your body's way of showing you the sensation or talking to you consciously and saying something's wrong. Something needs attending to. Something that just happened, something that somebody just said to you, something that really triggered a memory that was very unpleasant in our past, that's bringing back that same kind of emotion now. Something has triggered this dis-ease within us. And for a lot of people, that's just too confronting. It's too much to feel their feelings. Even though if you feel your feelings, you gain insight into them. You allow them to be processed, to be acknowledged, and to be heard. And then they will be able to flow through you and move on, basically. The energy will move through them, or through you, and onto wherever it's going to go. So unfortunately, a lot of people, instead of feeling their feelings, will reach for comfort foods. They'll reach for foods to distract them, to satiate them in a different kind of way. They'll look for food to express their emotions. So for example, if you're feeling angry, you might reach for chips, because you can crunch and take your anger out on the chips. If you're feeling lonely, and a bit, like your life is a bit empty and there's nothing that's fulfilling you, then, heavy food like pasta and lasagna and things like that, or bread, they're very filling, and they kind of give you that temporary feeling of everything's going to be okay. I have everything I need. But it's not really a long-term fix, because food can't fix feelings.
Yeah. Oh, that's the wonderful, wonderful way to put it. Thank you so much for that, Viki. I think it's a lot of food for thought right now, because you are absolutely right, and it's a very difficult place to actually feel your feelings. I think sometimes that's the one thing that we're really scared of actually exploring what we feel on a deeper level and finding out what's the reason and why we're feeling the way we're feeling. That's a great point. Well, Viki, I ask this everyone, and I really like to hear what you think about this, is if you had to pinpoint and narrow down to 3 things that people can implement in their life so they can feel amazing, so they can be their best self now and just generally lead an amazing life, what would that be?
1, breathe. Breathing brings you into the moment so that you can give yourself a conscious moment to actually decide how do you want to show up, or what do you want to do about this situation that you're in. It brings you back into the moment so that you can just disconnect from the external world and connect more in with yourself. So breathe, number 1. Number 2, create more awareness. So bring to mind what you're thinking, how you're feeling. Really get in touch with what your mind and body are actually trying to say to you, and how you feel. I mean, feelings aren't anything to be afraid of. And I think the more that people start to understand that, by really just getting in there and allowing whatever emotion they're experiencing to come, and sitting with that, they realize that it's so much easier than the aftermath of a binge, for example, or stuffing themselves silly on something they really didn't need. Maybe what they needed, maybe what they were really hungry for, and that what they were craving was to know that they're not alone, to know that somebody is listening, somebody cares, and maybe they needed a hug, maybe they needed somebody to just say everything's going to be okay. And 3, I'm a huge fan of meditation. So I would suggest, even if it's not a formal practice, you can use breath as your introduction into a mind-body connection. But having some kind of relaxation activity every day that you do for yourself. So whether that is when you get up in the morning, having a little shake it out, and then breathe it in, and just sit there and breathe, nice diaphragmatic breaths, right down into the belly and the lower lungs where you can take more oxygen, and really taking a nice full deep belly breath and exhaling the same even slow counts as you breathe in, and do that for 10 counts first thing in the morning. And then maybe you might feel like that was so good, it really just made me feel a lot calmer, more relaxed, I could focus. Doing that throughout the day, and maybe doing it again at nighttime, or just some kind of meditative activity, which could be gardening. It could be just going for a walk and just noticing the breeze on your face and the sun on your skin. Something that sort of just allows you to be more in tune with how you're feeling and what you're thinking, so that you can be more aware of what's going on for you.
Well, Vicky, thank you so much for sharing all this incredible information with everyone. Can you please share how everyone can get in touch with you, how they can find you?
Sure. You can come to my website, mindbodyfood.net. I'm really active on my Facebook and Instagrams, and it's the same, MindBodyFood on Facebook and at MindBodyFood on Instagram. So I'd love for people to come and connect with me there and have a chit chat. I like to put a lot of valuable information out there that's going to help people to feel happier, to love themselves, and be comfortable in their skin and taste freedom with their eating.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much once again, Vicky. That was a very, very insightful, very helpful, very deep and thorough interview. And I think, we managed in a very short period of time to answer so many questions that people probably haven't even thought of, when they first went to their journey. So thank you so much once again.
My pleasure. For all your help. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. And everyone, stay tuned, keep your eyes on the email, and you will be getting another interview tomorrow. And all the links that Vicky mentioned, if you didn't have the chance to write them down, they will be in the email that went out with her interview, so go back and check it out. And have a lovely rest of the day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.